Good morning, everyone. This is Joe Whitcomb here with Reboot Your Relationship and another episode dedicated to Talk Confidential, and with my good friend Shanti Nevin and David Laffey, and you can find them on Facebook. And this is one of the topics I talk a lot about, and one of my topics is taking charge of your love, and the other one is how we give away our power. So power and love have two very important, distinct things, and they have to be leaning on each other, just like grace and truth, and love and logic. All these things are coming together here. But we're going to talk today about the power that we give away in relationship, because I recently received an email from one of the Talk Confidential people, believe it or not, about giving away power. And that was kind of the theme of it, because I know that term gets thrown around a lot, and it got me thinking, what does it mean to have power? So for me, power is the ability to create change in your life. It is, and love is the thing that empowers it, that fuels it. And it's kind of like the power. Love is like a plane, right? You have the thrust and the vector. You got these two wings. You have the thrust, the power, and the vector is kind of direction, the course in which we're wanting to go towards, and it's change for the better, and it's growth, and it's to be in control of our reactions and feelings, being self-controlled, or having that power and freedom to choose something different than what maybe we've chosen in the past. It's to understand, accept, who you are and what you want, and to make no apologies for any of those things, because not allowing anyone to define your space. And those are healthy boundaries. I always say that power and freedom to choose something different is also the idea of being on your yoga mat and staying on your yoga mat, and not judging other people's yoga mats. So power is not about intimidating or domination, or it's kind of like these two power, when you get in these power struggles, right, or the immovable object and the unstoppable force. it's these two powerful things that are moving against each other, or not moving at all, right? So those things can be controlling at times, but again, it's not using aggression or domination, or even passive aggression, which is the withholding of love, when you have the power and freedom to choose to give something out of your heart. And it's important to understand that that's coming from your heart. It's about knowing your worth also, and enough to ask clearly and really with confidence for what you want. And that's the part we're going to get into in the communications skills section, about being assertive and being able to say no. Because a lot of us out there, we say yes with our words and no with our heart, and we are feeling stuck and caged in this velvet trap, this velvet cage, because we're saying yes to everybody, and we're almost always not able to say no. And if we're not able to do that too, there's this way of giving away power. So perhaps people are maybe also unclear about what it really means to give it away. And what it means to give it away is that way of just saying yes to everything and feeling the resentment. And I always talk about expectations and managing expectations, because expectations without consent, or let's say agreement, creates resentment. So how many times are you giving away your power, and you're not really managing your own expectations, your own needs, and so all those things begin to build up and create this resentment within you and between the two of you. And for those of you who are like me, who may be giving away power too often, because we're givers. If you're a giver, you're probably listening to this right now. If you're a giver, you're probably also the exploding doormat, because you get pushed so far, and then all of a sudden we've given away our power so much that we've lost ourselves. It's like trying to save the whole world and losing your own soul. It's so crushing. So Brene Brown talks about the hustling for worthiness, right? Hustling for your worthiness includes pleasing, perfecting, pretending, improving, And and what are we trying to get from that? We're trying to get love and acceptance and approval and validation and all those things that we all crave deep inside, that we give away our power. So in other words, if you're not feeling that you're worthy of love and acceptance, you might find yourself going overboard trying to please everyone by doing things you don't really want to do, or saying yes when you really want to be saying no. And perfecting is just that. It's busting your butt to make sure everything is tied up with a pretty bow, and hiding your feelings that might look messy, and working on making your outsides look like $1,000,000 because you're afraid of what might happen if you actually admit that you're falling apart inside. So we all wear this mask of pretending might look like fine, when really everything isn't. And your house of cards is falling apart. And proving is that constant need to show the world that you're doing and feeling, all in an attempt to cover up what's really happening inside. And so no one really gets to know the true you. And this is a lot of Brene Brown's work around the gifts of imperfection and working with shame and vulnerability. So I highly recommend, if anyone has not heard of Brene Brown, to jump on her book and her stuff on the Daring Greatly and all that kind of stuff. She is wonderful. She has a lot of podcasts. I would highly recommend, if any of you that are struggling with that sense of worthiness, to participate in this dialogue here about getting past that. So the first one we're talking about is just hustling for worthiness, right? The second one we want to talk about is tolerating toxic relationships. And this is what a lot of this forum's about, is what we're allowing into our sphere, onto our yoga mat. It's like, get off my yoga mat already, right? Just get back on your yoga mat. Stop judging my practice, right? So everyone has someone in your life that ranges, let's say, from bringing out the best in you, and I hope you have some of those in your life that are championing you, that have your back, that answer that question, are you there for me? Can I count on you? And you get a yes from those people. If you don't, you need to get new. We need to maybe find some new tribes. I always say, find your tribe. Find your tribe. People are going to love and accept you unconditionally, because the toxic, and you can go back to some of my other podcasts about toxic relationships, because they can be totally sucking the life and soul from you. It is soul crushing. It is, right? You guys know that one. You know those friends. And those people you have to kind of start loving from a distance. So, it could be a family member, a friend, a coworker, anyone. And if you're tolerating these people and their toxic behavior, guess what? You're essentially giving them a part of you that isn't being reciprocated. In other words, if you're putting up with their antics, you're creating a roadblock for the kind of relationships that deep down you really want and deserve. So kind of think of it like these two analogies, right? You're trying to get love from a stone. So let's say you have this soda machine, right? And you go to this soda machine with your proverbial coins in your pocket. You go to the soda machine and you start putting the coins into the soda machine, and you push the button expecting something to come forth, and nothing comes forth. Now we have two views. We have a view of self, we have the view of the soda machine, right? But for us who are big givers, we kind of turn to ourselves first. The view of self is, I didn't give enough coins. There must be something wrong with me. I didn't do it right? So I keep putting more coins into this soda machine over and over and over again. And we keep pushing the button expecting something to come forth, and nothing comes out. And we're like, what's wrong with me? And then eventually we start figuring out, and we think, well, maybe if I pound on it and beat on it, get frustrated with it, and so we're in this relationship with the soda machine. So we have a view of self that says there's something wrong with me, and then why can't I get it right? Why am I not getting right? I got to try harder, give up, try harder, give up, try harder, give up. What a vicious cycle, right? That's a toxic relationship, and so nothing comes out of it. And guess what? You're giving this machine power, trying to get love from a stone. You're still plugged in, but this is the karmic shuffle. This is the what we continue to do, because it's these old attachment wounds, old attachment injuries, where we're trying to get love from the inaccessible, the unavailable, those that don't have it. And I'm going to tell you a story later about how that kind of operates and works for us all. But here's the thing, that's giving away power. It's the hustle. And the machine's broken. And we keep thinking, well, let's call the repairman. But the machine doesn't want to be fixed. It wants to stay the same. So that's kind of like whack-a-mole. You know, you're sitting there, it's fun for the first 5-10 minutes, but boy, after about 2 days of that, 2 hours, 2 weeks, 2 years, 10 years, whatever, of playing whack-a-mole, that's exhausting, creating more fear, frustration, fatigue, more failure, and that's the toxic relationship. And you keep wondering, I keep investing into this empty well, I keep going there every day and getting no water, and now you're depleted. That's toxic. And so this is where we want to talk about how do we break out of some of these toxic relationships. Does that make sense? So the next thing is like being overly passive. Like some people are naturally passive, and that's okay. If that's your inherent personality, that's a beautiful thing. However, when you give your power away is when you fail to stand up for yourself and champion for yourself and to advocate for yourself. And, you know, and when you have that feeling in your body that tells you that you've been wronged and you don't listen to it and you do nothing about it, and when you take that from people and you know you shouldn't be, this is a self-betrayal. And this usually boils down to low self-esteem or lack of confidence, and this is something you can build with hard-won confidence by being more assertive. And one of the things that we work with in our communication and conflict resolutions and assertiveness programs here with Talk Confidential, and one of the things that Shanti is very good at and David is very good at is creating those dialogues and conversations to move beyond and be more assertive, because a lot of us think that being assertive means being aggressive, and actually it's not. It's actually drawing a line. It's having healthy boundaries, and boundaries are one of the things we're going to talk a lot about, because boundaries are several things. It's a line, and on one side of the line it's us protecting ourselves from the world, right? We're protecting ourselves from the world. That's just the external boundary. And also protecting the world from, guess who? Ourselves. So saying no and being assertive so that, but again, boundaries, I'm going to make a distinction here between rules and boundaries. Because rules are coming out of a place of fear or anxiety or a wound, that black and white, rigid, tight, inflexible rule that is inflexible. So if you find some of your rules are inflexible, the boundaries are much more, it's understanding, okay, it's like quarantining your life, keeping the good stuff in and the bad stuff out. It is like a property line. So boundaries are really helpful in knowing where I begin and end and where you begin and end. And this is a topic that we're going to have and discuss, and where we have the power and freedom to choose something different, that we give people the freedom to be who they are, and they're on their yoga mat doing their path, their practice, and we're not judging that, but we're not letting that bleed into our life either. So this is part of the practice, right, of learning how to not be overly passive or go the other way and being overly aggressive, but finding, because again, think of a boundary like your skin, right? Your skin is a boundary. It keeps all the good stuff inside, right? All that stuff that's supposed to stay intact, right? And it also then it also keeps all the bad stuff out, the toxins and other things that would contaminate the body, but also lets other things in. It lets the light through your eyes, the sound through your ears, and food into your mouth, and oxygen, and all these types of things. And we'll just kind of stay with the upstairs department right now, because a lot of good stuff can happen down below too. But we're just talking about that part of our relationship right now, is just what is the boundary, and the benefit of understanding how boundaries are super helpful for us to remember how to not give away our power. And sometimes you got to practice with safe people, because a lot of times we try to, practice setting healthy boundaries with unhealthy people. Because here's the thing. What we do is we train people how to treat us. We train people with our own porous boundaries. And all of a sudden there's this new sheriff in town, and we're nailing the 33 Theses to the door, and we're saying, I've got a new religion, and it's called boundaries, and nobody likes it. So we gotta understand how to do that and practice that with the community, right? And with one another in a safe environment. Okay? So the next one is letting your dreams just be dreams. Now, I'm Joseph the Dreamer. I've been a dreamer my whole life. I've been dreaming since I was 5. My mom used to call me Columbo because I would walk around in my head space all the time. And a lot of times that was just it. We all have one. We all have dreams. But maybe it's not to be the next, let's say, American Idol, or maybe it's not to be happier or healthier. Maybe, whatever it is, or maybe it is being happier or healthier, or maybe it's something else. But whatever it is, if you're just sitting around and wishing for it, and your next thoughts are, but I can't because you're cheating yourself. I can't because, and this is where you're betraying ourselves or abandoning our own dream. And that other abandonment and self-abandonment and abnegation is something where we're giving away power to our inner critic. And you're essentially spoon-feeding it, and you're feeding the inner critic, because there's a verse that goes, hope deferred makes the heart sick, and a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. It's not just a wish, and we're going to talk about how these dreams can really transform and move us and catapult us, because we have these two binary positions. We have one side, which is the real. Hey, this is what's going on right now in your life. And then you have your future vision, your future version, your future dream of where you want to go. And between your real and your ideal is this gap. And some people only focus on the future version and don't work on what's really happening, and some people focus on the real and ignore their future vision, their dreams, and give up on both. You have to focus on both to move through that, though, because that gap is that frustration that we have and not knowing how to move from here to there. And that's why we're here for you and talk, and to reboot your relationship, reboot your life, and to do all this talk to reinvigorate all these things, so that we're able to move beyond where we're stuck in some of these barriers, and not just let your dreams be dreams. They are more, and we'll talk more about that too. Another way we give away our power is being manipulated. And man, I do have a lot of personal experience with this one. Because manipulators have one goal in mind: to control other people in order to get what they want. And the way they might do this is very, maybe like threatening, giving you a guilt, or demanding of you, or even flattering you, or gaslighting, or using a Darvo technique, which is denying reality, attacking, reverse blame, going to victim, and then making you the offender for showing up and trying to set your boundaries. There's a lot of manipulative ways. It could be maybe withholding love, the very thing that you're wanting and needing, and stonewalling, which is another way of manipulating and controlling and not being able to do that. But basically their goal here is always the same. By not standing up for yourself, or not setting these healthy boundaries, or by making, excuses for your manipulator, you're giving away your power. You're giving it away. And that feels like a self-betrayal. Let me say something about two types of betrayal. There's other betrayal, and there's self-betrayal. Other betrayal, okay, sometimes I can live with that, because I can escape them, I can leave, I can set a boundary, and I don't have to deal with them. And I can, if I have to, I can love them from a distance, cut them off. But guess who you can't escape when you betray yourself? You. Because you're stuck with you. And so that brings up more of that vicious cycle and that fear cycle and all this stuff, because now guess who you can't escape? Yourself. And that goes to a deeper level of not believing in yourself and not accepting yourself. And this is the self-acceptance. We talk a lot, guys, about self-love. And I think that's important that we talk about self-love, because when you self-love, you're able to other love. But I think what we're missing here is another level, and that's about self-acceptance. Self-acceptance. And self-acceptance is because the acceptance part is we have the good and the bad. And we have these types of splits. And we kind of think of the world as all good, all bad. Others as all good, all bad, all or nothing, black and white, and judgment and disqualifying the positive within yourself. And so we don't really do the integration of those two parts of accepting. It's kind of, think of it like an orange, right? An orange has all these different parts and these parts of you, and they get fractured off. And so the bad parts get fractured off, and the good parts, so either denying the good or denying the bad, or we're only accepting in and taking in the good and denying the bad, or we're taking in the bad parts of us and ignoring the good, disqualifying the positive. Right? All this stuff keeps going on because we're not taking. So taking charge of your power is determining how you feel about yourself. You can basically use how you feel about yourself as this barometer to measure not only how much power you have, but it's your, and if you're going to use it. So every time you give your power away under these circumstances or any circumstances, you're showing yourself in the world that there's room for improvement in the realm of believing in and accepting yourself. And that's part of being authentic. I've learned to be so, my friends used to tell me back in the day, they said, Joe, you're so inauthentic, you're inauthentic even about your unauthenticity. That's how deep that goes. That's pretty deep. And I had to learn to be more authentic. And now they're telling me, Joe, tone it down. You're too big. You're too bright now. Turn it off. Now you're being too authentic, too vulnerable. So, I try to taper it. But it's definitely more liberating not being held hijacked or having that gremlin in there dictating how you should live your life. So the other way of giving away power is allowing your inner critic to make decisions. And this is something you're going to learn here, because if you live in a place where your inner critic or gremlin, as I like to call it, or your dragon, another way I talk about your dragon, which leaves us kind of vulnerable and sensitive to things. It's on this constant replay in your head, the critics, and you're giving away power again. And so your gremlin or your dragon or whatever you want to call that likes you to live in this fear and shame of the unknown and paralyzes you, and this indecision keeps you stuck. Brene Brown talks a lot about shame, and I'm going to talk about shame and fear. And shame corrodes the very belief that we can change. That's that dark part of us. It's like a sticky tar in the gut, and it makes us believe that we can't change. And when we get to that level, and then also the fear. Shame's about hiding. Fear is about the anxiety that nothing's going to change, that nothing I do, nothing I say. It's that unknown world. Okay, it's that, the part of us stepping out it's that kind of our need for certainty and our fear of the uncertainty, the mystery, the unknown. And so there's a path, there's a practice here. Because making the unknown known, bringing clarity to the confusion, bringing light to the shadows, or the shadows to the light, and exposing, that feels kind of scary. But we're here, this is a safe, secure base, we're having these safe conversations, because bottom line, you have the power and freedom to create what you want. You have the power and freedom to choose something different. It's inside you, it's in me, it's in all of us, and you're more powerful than you could ever imagine, and you want that freedom. But all these constraints of the past, because by giving it away, okay, it's like throwing your hard-earned money into the air for others to take, so why not keep it and use it? Because all your power is a wonderful servant. Love is a powerful servant. All these things are emotions are powerful servants and terrible masters. Let me say that again. Emotions, power, love, freedom, all these are wonderful, wonderful servants to you and here to serve you. And there's wisdom in your emotions. There's wisdom in this. And it's a terrible master. And so by giving away your power is giving away to a master who does not want you to be free. So I want to leave this again with you to maybe use this little mantra I use all the time. You have the power and freedom to choose something different in every moment. So I want to thank you guys. This is Talk Confidential with Joe Whitcomb, and I want to thank Shantae and everyone else. David, I don't know if that's really you with did you shave your head bald or what did you do? I don't know if that's a picture. I don't know, but don't do me that way. I look terrible. I already look gangster enough. All right, thank you guys. Until next time. Bye bye.